Hey, true crime fans. Tired of ads interrupting your gripping investigations? Good news. With Amazon Music, you have access to the largest catalog of ad-free top podcasts included with your Prime membership. After all, ads shouldn't be the scariest thing about true crime. To start listening, download the Amazon Music app for free or go to amazon.com/ad-free true crime. That's amazon.com/ad-free true crime to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads.
The roads were cut off. The message we got, she said, life or death situation, and we jumped into action.
The baby's skin color was blue. We threw that baby in the helicopter as fast as we could.
It looked like something from a movie. They just took over and they said, we're here, we got you.
If you guys hadn't done what you did, that baby wouldn't be alive today. Staying on the air, disseminating information, so critical.
We were able to reunite 148 families.
Come on out! It was just Americans helping Americans. We are talking about a special kind of strength, the kind that emerges in the face of devastation. When hurricanes Milton and Helene ripped through communities, lives were forever changed. But amidst the chaos and destruction, ordinary people rose to the challenge, becoming heroes in the truest sense. From rescuing neighbors trapped in floodwaters to organizing relief efforts when everything seemed lost. These unsung heroes didn't wait for recognition. They acted with heart, courage, and compassion. And tonight, we honor their stories and their unwavering spirit. I had the privilege to meet some of these heroes when I traveled to North Carolina to help with relief efforts. Is this a 1,000-year storm?
Yes, sir. They talk about the storms that happened in the early 1900s here, and this has surpassed that.
When I saw that the media was not paying attention to this, and it didn't seem to me that the government was paying much attention to this, I got on the phone with my team and said, guys, we need to be paying attention to this at Merit TV. Water, food, everything that we could possibly get our hands on. And I loaded my plane up with it floor to ceiling, and we took off and came here. And we started connecting with different organizations, Samaritan's Purse, for example.
Everything that we do at Samaritan's Purse, it's the end game is the gospel. Everyone who puts their faith and trust in Him, they'll be safe from whatever storm comes down the road.
Food, water, power. We're trying to get to these in the most hard-hit, remote, isolated areas. People have lost everything.
We still don't have power or water, and we made up for a long time, but our house is okay.
You got the roof still intact,
That's right.
and so you're dry and...
Yep, we're okay. A lot of people aren't.
I came to help. Let me help. I'm in a basement right now that's filled up knee deep at one point with mud. And so bucket by bucket, shovel by shovel, it's time to shovel it out. They need our help. They need our support. Calling you to join me. Nobody's talking about being a Democrat, a Republican, the election. Everybody's just an American helping out. Nobody cares about all that noise.
This isn't about politics. This is about trying to save life and get your neighbor and their family back on the road to recovery.
What's happening is this army of helicopters that are getting ready to take off and go into some really hard-hit remote areas where Starlink units have been dropped in because these communities are completely cut off.
This is a hard-working, loving community, and it is this community that has built these roads back, but people need FEMA now.
We were driving down this gravel road, and this wonderful lady flagged us down.
I need a generator.
Let me introduce you real quick to Dr. Phil. If you watch TV, you may have seen him on TV.
How are you?
Okay.
I just said I could, if I had a generator and be one of them Coleman stoves and some of them little things I can stay at home.
Why don't we get you one?
And I can, have lights on. And if it comes wintertime, I don't even have a wood stove. My house will freeze and all my pipes will bust.
This help's coming, and you're not forgotten, okay?
And I'm by myself.
Yeah.
But I have a daughter and a son, but...
They live nearby?
Yeah, but you can't do everything.
Well, no.
She has so much.
But you're not alone. You know, that's why we're up around this way.
And I have a medical alert. Everything I've got's dead. You know, if I fall again and nobody around, I'll just have to lay there.
Well, look here.
Oh, thank you so much.
Look here. We got a generator for you right here.
Thank you.
All right. How's that?
No power.
Yeah.
No power, but that's...
Well, we'll get your power hooked up to your breaker box out here, and we'll get you some lights on here in just a minute. Well, you need power so you can watch me on TV.
Yes, I do watch you.
I am so inspired by the heart and strength of these people. America at its best. Well, that little 84-year-old was Sue, and we've kept in touch with Sue, and I'm happy to report she is hanging in and doing well.
All right, Dr. Phil, we got something, we got, I think we've about got everything going here. We've got the lights working, light switch is turning the lights on, and then come over here, let's check something. I think maybe this, you want to turn that sink on and see if it works?
Oh, yeah,
it's got a little air in it, but it's working.
Oh, Lord.
We got air, we got Wi-Fi, we got it all going for you.
Yes,
Everything's working.
Thank you so much. I've never had nobody to be this good to me in my life. Most people tell you they'll do something and they never do. You've never done that to me. You stood by your word.
Well, you're very sweet to say that. I just want to be sure that we are following through on everything, and so glad that you've got power and that you've got Starlink and those generators are cooking. And we've got a generator at your daughter's house now, I understand, as well.
That's right. We got a generator down there, and that's where the power for the well comes from. So we're going to wire that into their panel here in just a little bit, and then that should kick the well on to where both houses have water.
Well, that is so great. I'm just so anxious to get that going. Now, with this Starlink now, we'll be able to get your telemetry back to your cardiologist, right?
That's right. That's right.
I appreciate that. Ain't words to tell you how thankful we are that we met you and I stopped you. I had no idea I was.
You didn't know I was in that truck, did you?
No, I didn't know. I've watched this show for a long time.
Well, I'm glad you've been watching a long time, and I'm glad I didn't give you a heart attack. It's just been 2 weeks since you had the procedure done.
That's right.
Thank you so much.
She's become quite a hit in America, I can tell you. Millions and millions of people have fallen in love with her. My first guest, Jeremy, helped many people like Sue. His team was on the ground and in the air, saving nearly a dozen lives and assisting hundreds in the hurricane aftermath.
Aerial Recovery was founded in 2021. We do search and rescue initially, and then after that, we move into disaster relief and recovery. We got up into North Carolina and we saw the amount of devastation and destruction up here. We knew we were in the right place because I hadn't seen anything like this doing disaster response in the United States.
They found two gentlemen stuck in their vehicle saying that they needed some help.
We're still trying to find people out in the mountains, still trying to rescue and give people supplies that they absolutely need. We train 100 veterans a year of the military and first responder community to help after natural and man-made disasters, as well as to combat human trafficking. And I found when I'm on purpose and I am out serving my fellow brothers and sisters under God, that's what lifts me up. And I am not the only one. So our program is designed to also heal the rescuers first. There's no greater feeling to be able to help those in their greatest time of need. We're helping them, but to be honest, it's also helping me.
Wow. Well, Jeremy, first, thank you for what you do and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You say you take 100 vets from the military and first responders per year and put them through a year-long program.
Yes, sir. So we have an initiative we call our Heal the Heroes program. These are guys and gals that are struggling with a lack of purpose. They're struggling with depression, suicidal thoughts, ideations, anxiety, all these things that I myself have gone through, and especially in 2020 when I was separating from the military. And what we've found is in this service of others, that's really where you do start to find some healing and some purpose. And we're trying to make them understand that we are assets, not victims, and we have the expertise and the skill set to go to these dangerous situations and help people in their greatest time of need.
That seems so spot on. I've been in this for almost 50 years now, and one thing I've learned is that if you've got a hole in your heart, if you've got a hole in your soul, the fastest way to fill that up is to give away what you need the most. You're taking these people that seem to have lost their meaning, lost their purpose, and giving it back to them.
Absolutely. It brings out the best in them. It brings out the best in society and everybody they touch, just to be able to be back on mission. And now it's not just a mission that was assigned to you. Now we get to follow where God's taking us, and we can help individuals out, which is so fulfilling for veterans and first responders.
It's the difference between working with passion versus just being assigned something, because the efficiency and purpose with which you guys work versus what we're seeing with government on the ground, it's just daylight and dark, is it not? I mean, let's just be honest.
Yeah, it is. And we can rapidly deploy, and we're adaptable, and we can get into these areas in those 4, 8, 12 hours, those critical timings to help people. We don't have to wait for Title 10 orders or any of that stuff.
Yeah, well, one of the first questions I got asked when I came in with a plane load of stuff, they said, there are roadblocks all over the place. What are you going to do about that? And I said, well, I'm just going to fly over them.
I'm going to recruit you, Dr. Phil.
Yeah.
I think you got the right mentality for the team.
Coming up, meet the members of Jeremy's team who flew into action when a baby boy's life literally hung in the balance. Next.
One of our helicopters at Aerial Recovery got word of this baby, this mother and grandmother needed to get out, and this baby was in a life-threatening, critical situation. When they got there, that baby was in a bad way. They were able to fly it straight to a hospital, and it got the treatment that it needed to get. That one mission right there makes everything completely worth it.
Jeremy is the co-founder of the disaster response group, Aerial Recovery. Now, he is joined by Charlie and Jonathan, who were instrumental in the group's mission to save what turned out to be a newborn baby. When you're dealing with a baby under these conditions, it gets pretty scary, right?
Absolutely.
They were isolated, nobody could get to them.
Right, the roads were cut off, they were stuck. And the message we got actually said life or death situation, and we jumped into action.
Yeah, and I think what some of the people didn't realize about the terrain out there, these communities were cut off. You couldn't get to them by road or rail. There was no way to get to these people, right?
Correct. Actually, when we looked at our updated maps, it said all the roads to that town of Alexander were completely washed out and away. And in addition to being with Aerial Recovery, I'm with the Florida State Guard Special Missions Unit. So we actually put out to our team, hey, do we have a paramedic, a PJ nearby? And it just so happened to be we actually had one right there in that same town. And he was able to get to that baby within a few minutes. And when he actually got to that baby, he said the baby's skin color was blue. So it was getting ready to go away pretty soon. And then once they got the oxygen on it, able to stabilize that, Charlie was doing a lot of coordination with the grandma. As our helicopter was coming in, owner of the aircraft right over here is Zeb, and our pilot, Mark Roseman, they put it down. I was actually coordinating with an awesome kid named Tristan, who was 13 years old at the airport. His dad was the airport manager. And I was like, hey, I need to hot refuel this helicopter, meaning the engines are running. I don't want to shut it down. Like, we have to go. And he was like, well, it's not really policy that we can do that. I was like, we have to do it. And he was like, what's the situation? So I was like, this baby's going to die if we don't do it. And he was just like, done. And he just backed up that fuel truck next to the helicopter, rotors going, refueled it. We got in the helicopter, me and Charlie, took off over there. He was coordinating with the hospital. We land there. They ran the baby up to the helicopter. We threw that baby in the helicopter as fast as we could. We had about a 7-minute flight to Mission Hospital in Nashville. And the pilot wanted to land on the ground, but there was nowhere to put it. And there was a rooftop landing pad. He was like, never landed on a roof before. We had a direct crosswind on top of that building that was pretty strong, and it was raining. But he just dropped it down. Me and Charlie hopped out. We rushed that baby, the grandma and the mom inside. I think there was about 2 doctors and 3 nurses in there waiting for us. And then once they took that baby and basically saved it, it was just like the biggest relief. And I don't know, it's hard to describe the emotions on that, but.
There were a lot of God moments that came in to lead us up to that moment. It was just an incredible sequence of events.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying about people. If you're not there, you can't imagine. You go 100 miles laterally and everything's normal. People are driving around, going to Sonic, getting a cheeseburger or something. And we landed in some of these places and people hadn't seen or talked to anybody outside for like 9 days. They were out of water, they were out of food, and they had no communication. So I contacted Elon Musk and SpaceX and said, we need 500 Starlinks. He said, no problem, I'll have them in Carolina for you. And we picked them up and started taking them out, and you'd have people, all of a sudden they were in communication within like 2 or 3 minutes. And some of them had to be medevaced and different things. So it's crazy that happens in America. But it does. Yeah. And that if you guys hadn't done what you did, that baby wouldn't be alive today. Did you have local officials, police, trying to prevent y'all from helping?
Oh, yeah.
And we just want to be a blessing. But when you're trying to bless somebody in the name of helping people that are in need, and you just run into wall after wall after wall, it gets to be very frustrating on the nonprofit side, especially when we've submitted our paperwork, because there is a process. We've submitted all of that stuff, and then, we're spending time getting kicked out of an area, then contacting people we know for them to call so we can get re-access. And that's 2 hours of time that's spent just trying to stay on the ground to help. And it's 2 hours that people in need don't have.
Yeah, it's like, we're your government and we're here to help you.
They were trying to power grab. They were asking me for my orders, my authorization to be there.
Yeah,
nonsense
I was
stuff like
being
that.
very sarcastic. Coming up, there's one regret these heroes had about rushing off after airlifting Mason to the hospital. But first, a mobile medic who travels the world to disaster zones, trekking door to door to check on hurricane victims.
I found that there was a need for mobile medical teams to go house to house to find the vulnerable that were either homebound or those that couldn't or wouldn't come to established medical facilities in the wake of a disaster. And so I founded Mobile Medics International in 2017 to meet that need. We carry everything that we need in backpacks, and we walk to where we need to get regardless of what's in the way. It's very humbling to know that you are meeting people in a space where it's probably the worst thing that has ever happened to them in their lives. And so you leave space for them to be able to grieve with you, to be able to cry on your shoulder. We try to do as much good around the world as we possibly can for as many people as we can.
Hey everybody, Dr. Phil here. Could the US dollar be on the precipice of collapse? 19% of Americans 65 and older are still working. That's double from 35 years ago. Some people say that's something our elected leaders should be fixing. So what do you do? Well, I can tell you what I'm doing. I'm turning to physical gold and silver, and I encourage you to do the same thing right now. Preserve Gold is the only company I trust and recommend to my own friends and family, and you can trust them too. Today, they're giving away a free precious metals guide that contains essential information on how to help protect your accounts. Just text Dr. Phil to 50505. As an exclusive offer for my fill-in-the-blanks friends, in addition to their free guide, you can also get up to $15,000 in free gold and silver with a qualified purchase. So don't wait. Text Dr. Phil, P-H-I-L, to 50505 to claim this exclusive offer from Preserve Gold today. Well, we're joined tonight by hurricane heroes Jeremy, Charlie, and Jonathan, who all played a role in the helicopter rescue of an 11-day-old baby, Mason, and his family. And Jonathan says he regrets not getting their contact information because he wished they could at least follow up with them. I had the luxury of following up with Sue, who, because I got her a Starlink so I could get back in touch with her, and it's great to follow up. But I wanted to help you guys get connected. I want you to have contact information so you can see what happens with this baby.
Thank you so much.
And even actually a little further than that, because Mason's grandma is actually here. Lisa, come on out. Thank you. How are you? So good to see you. Why don't I put you right here? So catch us up. How are things?
Things are going very well.
Yeah?
Mason is thriving. He was blue. By the time they got there, he was completely blue. And he's everything. My kids are everything, but now that I have him, they can push aside because Mason's here and he's wonderful.
Yeah. And Mason had only been home, 4 days before the hurricane hit?
Yes. He was emergency C-section. They were concerned about his left lung, so they asked us to stay longer and make sure we were in town for Thursday. So we stayed, and that's Wednesday night is when everything happened. And it had been the fourth day where my sister and I had noticed that Mason wasn't getting enough oxygen. I'm the calm one, so my daughter usually looks at my face to know that everything's okay. So I stayed calm, but I knew that I had to find a way to get help. So I walked up the back of their house, and they have a little mountain area, and walked until I got a signal. And when I got a signal, the first person I called was my sister. 911 was not working.
Right.
So I got a hold of my sister in Florida, and I was able to get to her and tell her, we're dire, we need help. And she said, we're gonna make it happen.
And you said it was like out of a movie. You said you look up and these men in black shirts and army pants come marching over the...
Yeah, I didn't even know how to react. Or everybody said, did you get a video? I said, no, I didn't get a video, I just sat there. It looked like something from a movie. And they just took over and they said, we're here, we got you. And I was able to just take a nice sigh and knew that help was there.
That's what I meant when I kept saying over and over, this is America at its best. And Lisa's daughter has a message for this group also.
Hi guys, so sorry we couldn't be there, but we sent Grandma.
Thank you so much for saving our baby boy Mason.
We would love to invite you to Mason's first birthday next year in Disney in September.
And we look forward to seeing you there.
Going to Disneyland.
It's got to feel good to get a catch up and see that everything you went through has come to a happy ending.
Yeah, we even have Zeb right over here too in the audience.
He donated his helicopter, his time, his pilot. For a full week, he's offered for John and I to go back next week and do some more work.
Thank you, Zeb.
Zeb, stand up if you would. Please give Zeb a hand. So we actually have a birthday invitation here for Mason's first birthday party. And this is helicopter themed,
there
of
it
course.
Is. Oh, wow. I love it.
That's you.
Yeah, that's you, definitely.
Yeah. Maybe that'll be Mason someday.
You got to shave.
This network didn't get named Merit by accident. It's actually working hard, helping, and paying it all forward. And that's how this country got to be where it is. That's how it's going to stay where it is. And you guys are the best example of that I've seen. So God bless you and thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, my next guest, Mark, is a radio host out of Asheville, North Carolina. And as the hurricane hit land, he hit the airwaves to keep his community informed and connected. Ironically, that led him to be separated from his wife and son, who were forced to evacuate.
I've been doing hurricane coverage almost 25 years. We knew we were gonna need to kind of walk people through this whole thing. It was a scary time. My wife and I started to have the conversation about what the plan for the storm would be. And my suggestion was that they evacuate and come to the radio station with me and my son Eli and our 4 dogs. And she didn't want to do that. And so I said, okay, I got to go to work tomorrow morning and I guess I'll see you after the storm. Thursday night, as the rains got heavier and heavier, I got a message from the fire chief. If they don't evacuate, please make sure they write their Social Security on their forearms. because they might not make it. Friday morning, about 4:45, I got a phone call that they had chosen to evacuate. They made it to a bank parking lot, and then I didn't hear from her again. I was lost on the inside, but I couldn't let that come out on the outside. I think the biggest source of strength was the listeners that were calling in and were saying, hey, thank you so much for just being here. Sunday, we were doing live coverage. It was still just my producer, Tank, and I in the studio. When people were calling in, he puts their names up on the screen. My wife, Brandy, spells her name with 2 E's at the end, and she's the only Brandy I've ever known that spells her name like that. And I look at the call screen and I realized, like,
is that who I think it is?
Yes.
Brandy?
Yes.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay.
It was the first time I knew that they were okay. And it was pretty much waterworks for me from there on out.
Well, Mark, this just turned into a marathon, right? You thought you'd maybe be there for 2 or 3 days.
It actually wound up to be 14 and a half.
Wow, 14 and a half.
I'd covered hurricanes my entire career, and usually storm coverage lasts for a day and a half or so, 2 days.
Yeah.
And this was different. We knew kind of going into it, we'd already had 6 inches of rain, and now we were expecting 20 to 30 more inches of rain on top of it. It was just a recipe for decimation, and that's exactly what we ended up with.
And this was one of the few places people could get information.
Yeah, we had a listener who called in and said, listen, I've been out doing wellness checks, and I'm just listening to you guys put these names and addresses out over the air, and I'm going to find them. And so by the time 12 to 14 days had passed, we were able to reunite 148 families.
Wow.
It was one of those things where nobody had to do that, but they saw their neighbors that were in need. And you know, we basically said, you can't call people strangers anymore. They're just unknown neighbors. And now there's a whole lot of neighbors that know each other. And I think that's really what it was more about. It was about connecting the community. Our 7 radio stations were being held on the air by 1 Starlink unit, plus our transmitters. People started to call in and need someone to talk to. Yeah. It wasn't about, can you get me water? It was about, can you maybe give me a little bit of peace of mind? And, you know, kind of while this was going on, I didn't really know where my wife was, or my son, or our 4 dogs, and we lost contact. And for about 48 hours, I just kind of had to fake it for people. But it was the hardest thing I've ever been through.
Oh, I can imagine. And when you saw her name come up on that board.
You know, it was so weird because that happened, and which was just this miracle as far as I was concerned. But the other miracle was that my team stayed on the air. And it was just about letting Asheville and Western North Carolina know that we were there. And we were going to try to help them however we could. And if that meant finding somebody with a chainsaw to get a tree off their house, we'd do it. If they needed medication, we'd figure out a way to get them medication. These are all just things that we all should be doing on an everyday basis for people.
As recovery efforts continue in North Carolina, Mark is preparing his home for the return of his wife and son. It's been 3 weeks since his family evacuated to Georgia, and that's where they recorded this message.
I'm Brandy.
And I'm Eli.
We've missed Mark terribly. He's done such a wonderful thing for our community. We couldn't be more proud of him. And we are just so excited to see him again. We're so excited he's getting an opportunity to be on your show. He really deserves to have this opportunity after all the hard work that he's done. So yeah, we just can't wait. And I do have to say, I've been a longtime fan of yours, Dr. Phil. I'm a mental health counselor myself, always looked up to you as a psychologist, and we especially love your appearance on the Medea movie.
How good does that feel?
That's like the second time I've seen her. and Eli, it's the first time I've seen him.
Well, here's the third. Come on out, Brandon, Eli.
I know. You want to meet Dr. Phil? Go.
I don't think that's number one. So good to see you. So good to see you. Good to see you, man. How are you?
Maybe. I don't know.
Well, you've actually been doing some work on your own because you've been doing some volunteering and things like that to help along the way, right?
Yeah, Mark had me call into the show a couple times and just give some mental health tips for people. And I've given out my contact information for anybody who just needs somebody to talk to that doesn't have a therapist already. And my caseload has been very busy.
I would think so, because it's so devastating, and so many people have just lost everything. We talked to some of them that we flew into on these Black Hawk helicopters that said they may not have power for 6 or 7 months. They may not have water for 6 or 7 months. Think about that. That's all the way through the holidays and into the spring because they're so isolated. What are they saying to you?
A lot of survivor's guilt. People just feeling terrible for the fact that they're okay when others are not.
Mm-hmm. Did it help to hear his voice on the radio?
Oh, yeah.
Knowing at least that he was okay?
It did. I mean, and I'd just go out in the car and turn it on. And I knew he was okay, and I could hear him, and that helped for those couple of days that we were still at home.
Yeah. How proud of your dad were you that he was in there connecting people?
That was amazing that he was able to reunite so many people and stay on the air for all that time and have people come and jump over a fence to give him gas to continue on. So, yeah. It was definitely a very proud moment.
It had to be. And, we've been kind of critical of the government and FEMA and all of that. But the interesting thing about this area is people stepped up and did what needed to be done.
Yeah.
The devil looked at Appalachia and said, I'm going to destroy you all. And Appalachia looked at the devil and said, it's y'all and we're the storm.
Yeah, exactly. And I think these communities will be stronger after this. Neighbors that didn't know each other now do. Mm-hmm. And it really was amazing. I was shoveling mud out of a basement, and the guy that lived in that house was next door helping somebody do something in their house because there wasn't room for him to help himself in that area. It was like, I'm not going to stand here and watch. I'm going to go help somebody else. It was just an amazing experience. And I hate that it happened, but there are good things that come out of it. And I'm sure you're pointing that out to people when you talk to them.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's been talking about the Mr. Rogers quote, look for the helpers, and you can see them everywhere, and that does help people.
Yeah, for sure. All right, coming up, an unconventional evacuation. How a Florida surfer used his paddleboard to bring neighbors to safety.
Yo, check it out. Got my paddleboard anchored up, ready to launch. The breach is the window. I'm outie, 5,000 G.
I jumped out my window and paddled up the street to my neighbor's house. And my neighbor's friend said that there's a lady trapped in the house across the street. So I went over there and I had to jump through the window and help her. She had a St. Bernard. I had to basically throw him out the window. And he's a super sweet dog. He jumped right on the paddleboard and like nothing was happening. The pit bull, on the other hand, he didn't want no part of it.
Our swimmer noticed some debris or an object about 2 o'clock, and it looked like a big object, a silhouette. As we got closer, we saw the arms reach up in the air and realized at the moment that we had found the survivor floating, clinging to a big fishing cooler. Oh man, we were ecstatic.
That was one of many miraculous moments out of Florida. A man rescued 30 miles off the coast, clinging onto a cooler and hope after surviving Hurricane Milton. Wow. My next guest, Martin, is a lifelong surfer and now hurricane hero after saving nearly a dozen people and their pets with nothing more than a paddleboard. And he joins us now.
Thank you for having me today.
Well, thank you. I think it's just amazing. People find a way to use what they have, and you certainly did in this situation. So, Martin, how did you get started?
One of the neighbors had mentioned me there was a lady trapped, and then I went over and helped her, and she had
a woman and her daughter in the house next door as well. And then once I got them out, there was a couple ladies down the street that were screaming for help. And it just kind of spiraled at that, you know.
Right. This one had dogs, right?
Yeah, I think I got about 5 dogs out and 3 cats. One lady had her cat in a duffel bag. 2 of the dogs tried to swim away quite a few times, but I would just grab them, throw them back on the board, and, you know, they kind of, you know, just rode it out with us, so to speak.
Yeah. How far did you have to take these people on a paddleboard? How far did you have to go to get to something dry?
It wasn't too far. You know, I believe they were just, you know, they were scared more than anything.
Yeah, I'll bet. How fast was that current?
The storm surged, you know, on the streets where the beach accesses connect. The current was a lot stronger, but in the neighborhood, it was, you know, minimal, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, I guess it is for you because you're used to it. So you said you grabbed some beers from the fridge before you evacuated.
Yeah. My buddy, you know, I called him and I was going to paddle to his second story. He actually lives across the street from them. So he told me he had 6 beers left. So I packed some beer in my backpack and jumped out my window and headed out.
Yeah. Well, at least we know you can think under pressure, Martin, and that's what we need to keep our eye on.
Priorities, Dr. Phil.
But seriously, thank you so much for what you did for these people because listen, we're talking life or death here. And for you to step up in that way, you didn't have to do that, but you did. And God bless you for what you did, my friend.
Thank you very much. You said it. This is just neighbors helping neighbors, really.
Seriously, I agree. My final thoughts after the break. But first, another water rescue after a 14-year-old boy is spotted floating atop debris in really murky water.
Okay, let me spin around. Hey, right there. Be careful. Grab him. Come on.
One of the things I've always said is that a crisis doesn't create a hero. It really doesn't. What a crisis does is reveal who someone is. It truly does. It reveals who they are inside. And anytime you face a crisis in your life, ask yourself who it's revealing about you, who you are inside. And I think that's true individually. I think it's true as a family. I think it's true as a community. And I think it's true as a nation. When we face crises, it reveals who we are. And I came away from Western North Carolina and the Appalachians learning something about the collective personality of those people. I really did. I never heard anybody complaining. I never heard anybody whining. I never heard anybody standing in a line complaining about how long it was taking. I never heard anybody complaining about anything. Nobody put on their victim hat. And when I'm in a basement shoveling out mud next to somebody I didn't know and that the homeowner didn't know or the volunteer didn't know who was next to him, I didn't hear anybody say, "Are you a Democrat? Are you a Republican?" Nobody asked that. It was just neighbor helping neighbor. Everybody was an American. It was just Americans helping Americans. And that's why I said I just saw this as America at its best. And it told me we're still here. We're all still Americans, and in us is the ability to give and care about one another. And it made me realize with great clarity, we're not nearly as divided as the media would like everybody to believe we are. And I just hope that we're smart enough to realize that outside of a crisis, hopefully we don't need something devastating like 9/11 or a hurricane or a flood or devastating fires, to wipe out communities, to cause people to reach out to each other and say, hey, I'm your neighbor, how can I help? And sometimes it's harder to take help than it is to give it. But I saw that happening as well. And when we flew in and landed in a field in the middle of nowhere on a Black Hawk, I saw people coming out of the woods to greet us. And they didn't rush out there saying, give me this, give me that. They came out to shake our hands and say, thank you for coming, and letting us know what their neighbor needed. Not one of them put themselves first. And I came away feeling so positive about human nature. And I hope after watching this show and meeting all of these great people that you do too. I'm optimistic about America. I want to thank all of my guests tonight for their heroic efforts during the hurricanes. The combined action of all of these heroes likely saved over 100 lives in a short period of time. Thank you for being America at its best.